Hi everyone and welcome to our annual Trends webinar. I'm excited to welcome you all here today. So this webinar runs a little bit differently to our typical webinars in that I am joined by five industry experts who will have a mini spotlight on five of the trends that I've predicted will shape the industry into 2026. So I'm Priya and I'm the editor of Short-Term Rentals, which, if you are unfamiliar, is a B2B multimedia platform focused on delivering editorial content for professionals across the industry. So today's webinar is kindly sponsored by Guesty, so please enjoy this video from Guesty. Further details about Guesty can be found in the chat box below, so please do check that out as well. So here are a few guidelines for our webinar today. So we will have a 10-minute Q&A with each of our five panelists, and we'll be covering everything from luxury, AI, distribution channels, and multi-accommodation bookings. So speaker contact details as well are also available in the chat box below. So please do connect with our speakers after this webinar. A recording will also be made available on the website within 24 hours, and it will also be sent to registrants over the email that you signed up to the webinar with. Lastly, if you do have time, please do fill out a quick survey that will appear on your screens once the webinar is over, as we really do appreciate your feedback. So here is our expert panel that we have lined up for you today, and you will get an opportunity to meet all of our panelists. But first, we're going to kick off with our first trend, which is the rise of luxury experiences. So Nir, welcome to the webinar. How are you? Please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone. Hi Priya. Good to see you. Thank you for having me. My name is Maimon. I'm the co-founder of a company based in LA called the Maimon Group. We specialize in luxury and ultra luxury property management and hospitality. We currently have about 147 exclusive properties in LA. And we, through a platform called LPMS and a marketplace, we start working with the best luxury providers globally to book high net worth clients from Miami, Aspen, New York, hopefully expanding to Europe next year as well.
Perfect, thanks, Nir. And so I suppose a core quality of the Maimon Group is your kind of level of tailored service and quality service. And I can imagine that your guests that you work with have very specific expectations. So how are you finding guest expectations evolving right now in the ultra luxury space? And what are you kind of seeing on the ground?
That's a great question. So we just had a big conversation about the definition of luxury. And I think the word luxury is being used a little bit too much in our industry and is not really specific. So what we're landing on is luxury. It's a combination of two. It cannot be just one. It cannot be just the experience. It has to be above standard accommodation, which usually falls into property itself being like top end, very, very high end amenities, very high end finishes. But then you have to pair it with the experience. So if you have a beautiful property or a villa or a chalet, you don't have the experience, I don't think it's luxury. Now, if you have the experience and you don't have necessarily accommodation, you can get to a very high level, but it still, in my perspective, does not consider luxury. It's really the combination of both. It's a combination of a very high-end, well-curated, well-maintained property that you pair it with experience. And what is the experience? Is really everything that the guest will need at the tip of their fingers. Anywhere from chef to grocery to turnover cleaning to car rentals to jet rentals to yacht. We have a sign in our office says, "We make it happen." We have so many stories where we had a guest, for example, that just had a baby and we had to convert the whole room for like a nursery room for them just to baby proof the house. And I think it's when you're focusing on the experiences, when you're focusing on creating a curated moment for those guests is really where you can start defining luxury and ultra luxury experience. And that's really what we are passionate about. And it's really something that we're pursuing and still perfecting.
Thank you. And I think when we think about the bigger picture in the luxury space, in short-term rentals, like you said, we're seeing the luxury segment expand very quickly in the space. And so do you think that luxury experiences are a rising trend as well in the sector? And what do you think could be driving this shift, if so?
I think people are looking for a uniqueness, right? Supply is rising. You see the numbers in every market, just like you said. Every year we're going to have a more and more challenging years because there is more supply. So supply is outpacing demand. You can see it in every market. You can see it in the luxury market. So the local boots on the ground or the property managers like ourselves, we're constantly thinking, how can we become unique? How can we make sure the next time the guest is booking this destination, they keep coming back to us? And it's really fall down into building meaningful relationship with your guests. And by providing experiences, it's an opportunity to create a uniqueness for your brand. Now, the smart one can make money out of it. So you should not necessarily make it for free or do it for free. You can make a profitable margins on selling concierge services and selling experiences. And we had situation where we sold Formula One tickets, and we have situation where we sold concert tickets. We had situation where we do like mini events on our properties. It's all a profit generation items that will affect your bottom line. So as ADR is compressing, as competition are growing, I think people really need to start thinking about what do I do to create the uniqueness or a blue ocean mentality for my business. And we land it on experience, right? We're doubling down and tripling down on experiences because it's really where we can make a difference. I'm sorry, you're muted.
Sorry about that. And thank you. And I know you touched on a few of those examples there, but what does ultra personalization kind of mean in practice in the space, maybe compared to a few years ago?
Can you ask the question again? I couldn't hear you.
How are you kind of seeing ultra personalization in the luxury space kind of evolve, maybe compared to a few years ago?
I love it. And you know, it's like a segue for our next topic, like talking about AIs and tech, but we're now really looking at personalization, and we're like, okay, what can we do and how can we use the current tools and technology to create even a better experience to our guests and even make it more personalized? So we're looking at our workflows, and you know, we recommend everybody to document your workflows, everything that you do. Make sure you have like a flow chart, and then we're looking at opportunities when we can create moments and when we can increase personalization with our guests. So I'll give you an example. We asking an AI to look at all of our communications and constantly updating our CRM and our database with any specific data points that can benefit our marketing and our sales teams in the future. So if, for example, throughout our conversation, I guess we'll say, oh, my dog name is, I don't know, Bobby. The system will capture that and we'll put it in our system. Right now, we're building tech to try to achieve that, but I think that's something that any people can do, any person can do. You just need to train your teams to be aware of situation like that, so you can then later on leverage it. So when our guest experience walk the customers into our property, and a customer showed up or a guest showed up into our property and walking in, the guest experience is going to go back to the CRM and he's going to look at the notes and he's going to remember that the dog name is Bobby. So guess what? When the guest check in, she says, oh, she see the dog for the first time. It says, Bobby, welcome home. Good to see you. Those are moments, right? Those are the little things that you can make a difference, right? Obviously, it's layers. You have to have very strong hospitality fundamentals. Like if you remember the dog's name, but your sheets are not commercially cleaned, or your mattress is 6 inches instead of 14, 18 inches, it's not going to work. But if you have a very, very high-end accommodation, especially on the luxury section, and then you add personalization on top of it, now you're making a difference. And you can do personalization in multiple things. You can do personalization on your marketing. So we're keeping personas for each one of our guests. So we categorize our guests by 7 different personas. And based on the personas of our guests, we're sending them specific marketing, if it's emails or Instagram or social media ads that are based on their personalization. So if you're a family person, I'm not going to show you pictures of Formula One, drinking and partying. I'm going to show you things like moment with your kids in the pool, looking at the sunset, or playing card games on the tables for, a nice meals. Those are the things. So personalization for us is capturing the right information about our guests and make sure our team can utilize it. And then also creating personalized, meaningful communications into our marketing, all the way down to the welcome cards, to the welcome basket. I'll give you another example. We have 5 different welcome baskets. Based on your personality, I'm going to give you a different welcome basket when you come to my house. So we have the under 30 celebrity, right? So if you're an under 30 celebrities, I know what I'm going to put in your welcome basket. But if you're a family, I'm going to give you a completely different welcome basket. So personalization is key to create moments, to build connections, to continue growing your business and your network.
Thank you. It's interesting to hear how you're balancing that personalization, but also with that luxury edge as well. So thank you. And just to wrap up on my final question for you, we're kind of seeing an interesting shift around how luxury guests as well are discovering properties as well. So whether that be through curated platforms, networks, or even influencer-led recommendations. So my question to you was, what changes do you expect to see in how high-end travelers are discovering luxury rentals?
Wow, that's a great topic. What we see that works for us over the years is working through partners. I think we even build a platform for it. It's a platform that allows partners to see our calendars and to see our availability very easily. That's our number one drive. So we are building connections with travel advisors. We're building connections with real estate agents, with family offices, people that have access to very, very high network individuals that don't necessarily will go on an OTA or even book online. Those guys don't make it. So maybe their personal assistant will book online. So we're continually doubling down on B2B marketing, really going to convention, meeting the right people, being in the right, position ourselves in the right place. And then we'll start looking at AI search, right? What can we do? We're launching our new website, and what can we do to be higher on the different AI platforms when people doing a search? And we everything is changing, right? The way you used to market your company, the way you used to do distribution in 2025 is, I think 2026 is completely different. And everybody should really look at specifically for their market and category, how can they utilize the existing database, how can they utilize connections, and how they can utilize AI to drive more booking to their business.
Definitely. Perfect. Thank you, Nir. And that sets us up nicely as well for our next trend. But thank you. And if anyone has questions for Nir, his contact details are in the chat box. So please do check that out. But again, thank you, Nir. And thank you for your insights. We're going to be moving on to our next trend now. Perfect. So I'm welcoming Jaime into the conversation. So we're looking at generative AI reshaping search. So welcome, Jaime. How are you doing? Could you please just introduce yourself?
Great. Yeah. Hi, Priya. Thanks so much for having me. Uh, I am the chief economist and SVP of analytics at AirDNA. So we track the global short-term rental industry, all the listings, all the bookings, and the trends sort of shaping how investors are coming into the market and how guests are choosing, searching, and their sort of general trends. And then we work very closely with both buy side and sell side institutional investors looking to track the short term rental and its sort of place in the broader hospitality landscape.
Perfect. Thanks, Jaime. So I suppose you sit at this really interesting intersection of data, travel behavior. So before we get into the specific trends, I'd love to hear what you think is the biggest shift that you're seeing in how people discover rentals, as we've spoken about AI-driven tools becoming more mainstream as well. So what do you think is the biggest shift that you've observed?
Yeah, and it's a billion-dollar question right now, and based on the latest tools that Google or OpenAI or Anthropic, the like, sort of release new tools around sort of searching and finding travel has meant billion-dollar valuation changes for the for companies like Booking, Expedia, and Airbnb. Broadly, there's this expectation around many investors that generative AI is going to reshape search and change who's going to be able to capture the value from these guests. So if all of a sudden generative AI can start pushing people to direct booking websites, does that disintermediate Expedia and Booking.com? If that happens, and we could see the enterprise value of those companies sort of disappear overnight. I don't think that's happening. I don't think that will happen. But what we are seeing a shift from is where people sort of search, filter, compare on these OTAs to help me plan a trip with these preferences. Now, Sam Altman and Google, they're not dumb. A large percent of their revenue comes from Booking.com and Expedia, and they are not going to start and creating these relationships with the hotels and short-term rental operators themselves. They're going to leverage the existing OTAs to bring that inventory and make it discoverable on the platform, and earn revenue from that. So OpenAI, ChatGPT, they need to make money somehow, and Booking and Expedia are ready and willing to give them as much money as they need to make sure that their listings are showing up first when someone does a travel search on ChatGPT or Gemini. The change here and how this really impacts hosts and operators is we're going to go from a notion of I'm going to have 10 pages that I can sort of run through to compare listings to ChatGPT is going to give me three options that it thinks is best. And I guarantee you those three options probably aren't going to be a listing that has one of them isn't going to have a 4.7 review or a listing with a bad recent review. It's going to come up with what it thinks is the best listing for the trip that I'm looking to take. And if I'm not one of the ones that is going to be best, it's going to make it very difficult for me to be discovered.
Yeah, definitely. And that kind of leads into my next question for you, which was, this is the impact that this might have on property managers in terms of visibility. How are you expecting them to navigate the change, perhaps, in which property get surfaced, and which ones might risk being left behind as well.
Yeah, and Nir talked about this a little bit, but essentially every listing is going to have to be SEO or optimized for the AI agents. So if you're wanting to get booked for the World Cup and you're in Dallas, you better be as well saying that you are a World Cup listing in your description. You better be saying how close you are to the highway, to transit, to the stadium. And you would love for fans from Argentina to be staying in your listing, like whatever you can be doing to signal to the groups that you are a great listing for them. And whether it's not in World Cup or the avatars that you're looking to serve, because essentially what the AI is going to do is it's going to build an avatar of that guest, and then what are the listings that are going to best serve them, and then also and reviews, review scores, review summaries are going to be more important than ever. So if you do have some bad reviews, make sure you are going in and putting comments underneath that review, explaining why you're still a good listing, why that review might not be relevant for most guests, because the AI is going to be able to take into account that additional information and maybe give it those caveats. So generic listing language, generic descriptions are going to be penalized very heavily. And properties that are going to benefit are those that are really optimized towards specific avatar. So family, pet friendly, remote work, event driven homes, I think are going to do best in this sort of generative AI landscape.
Interesting. And are you seeing any signs of kind of influencing booking behavior? So shorter research cycles, faster decision making, new types of demand spikes all through this surge of generative AI?
Yeah, I'll say the one of the ways we're able to sort of differentiate sort of propensity to get booked and overall earnings is looking at review scores. It's looking at the impact of being professionally versus non-professionally managed, looking at the impact of different amenities in the properties. And essentially, I mean, the things that matter are mattering more and more and more. And if you're a property in Gatlinburg that doesn't have a hot tub, like, and your occupancy is dropping relative to the overall mix because the AI thinks if you're in Gatlinburg, you've got to have a hot tub. Like, why would you go to Gatlinburg and not have a hot tub? If you have a low performing property, so below average, and average being a 4.8, and that's going to make it very difficult for an AI system to recommend you compared to other more highly performing properties. And we are seeing the impact of the high performers, so the haves, versus the low performers, the have-nots, continue to diverge. And I expect that will be a huge trend for 2016 and 2017. And if professional managers on average earn lower overall review scores, that could mean that professionally managed properties start to overall earn less than individually managed properties.
Thank you, Jamie. That actually brings us to a wrap on your segment, but thank you so much for those insights.
Thank you.
Thank you. And again, all information, if you want to connect with Jamie and ask any more questions, are in the chat box below, but thank you. So moving on to trend 3, we have a distribution reset, and I'm welcomed by Richard Vaughton. So hi Richard, and would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi Priya. Thanks for the invite to be on the webinar. I'm a founder of a company called Yes Consulting, and we are an advisory group to short-term rental industry born out of owning and exiting management companies, tech businesses, and we generally advise on growth, on tech management and exit.
Perfect. Thanks, Richard. So with your experience, you've seen the full evolution of how distribution has kind of shaped the industry. So from your perspective, what do you think is driving property managers to rethink their reliance on OTAs and perhaps more into next year and to look more seriously at a broader channel mix as well?
Yeah, you've picked a very hot topic, and it's been on every manager's lips this year, and everyone I've spoken to. And you have to ask the question, why this year? And I think it's because there's a whole raft of OTA actions that have caused trouble, essentially, in the minds of managers. And they are, of course, stimulated by Airbnb at certain points in this. So you've got things like you've got the merchant of record issues. You've got data silos where you can't access information. We're increasingly changing the cancellation policies. There's a lot of risk attached to being isolated within OTAs. You can lose your business overnight. I think add that all together with all the algorithmic shuffles that Jaime knows all about in terms of are you being surfaced? Are you not being surfaced? Do you have the right prices? Do you have the right number of reviews? Are you in the right place? Is there too much inventory or too little inventory here? There's a lot of nervousness happening in the industry. But added to that, I think this AI message right now is also penetrating everybody's mind in terms of what on earth is happening. Are other people accelerating the opportunity here? Am I missing it? And do I really need to do something about it? So there's a lot of reasons, and they're all forming together right now to make everybody think, what am I going to do in 2026?
Yeah, definitely. And AI, like you mentioned, has popped up in our conversations earlier too. And I think we're seeing a shift or a wave of new discovery layers as well. So what alternative channels or discovery layers do you think will matter most to property managers over the next year or so?
It's a really good question. And it's one that is kind of perennial. Where else can I get bookings? Well, there's very few places you can actually get bookings in reality. I've probably spoken to 100, 200 managers this year. And it is one of the questions, how do I get extra bookings? How do I do this? Well, midterm stays is very topical at the moment due to legislation. Most managers saying, I want to mix my marketing. How do I get into midterm stays? Okay, channel manage it. Go and speak to the large midterm stay companies, like Situ or Silverdor or Blue Ground, these types of companies, and they will give you an opportunity, but it'll only be a small part of your mix, of course. I think the question comes back to the OTAs. The OTAs are not going anywhere. And as Jaime just pointed out, they will be spending an awful lot of money at the AI surfacing layer. They will be in the search there. So I think you have not to look at the OTAs as the enemy. You're actually, I'm the worst person to actually say that because I've kind of always looked at them as the enemy. But you have to utilize them as a source of delivery for you. Okay. And I think what is happening through AI, and again, Jaime and Nia talked about it as well, is the fact you need to be discoverable. So my advice right now to everybody in the industry is you really need to think about being discoverable as much as channel management. You've got to think everything that Jaime just said. You've got to structure your website. You've got to structure your content. You've got to really, really focus very, very closely on intent and semantic search as much as anything else in the future. We're already seeing, some of my clients are already seeing 3, 4, 5% search on large language models. And when you consider what Alan Altman has said about, I'm only going to surface the best properties, the ones that are the best results. Otherwise, I'm not going to get any business, am I? So you have to be in that channel. There are lots of other things you can do. You can become very niche. Nia's niche. He's very luxury. He's doing a fantastic job. He's personalizing service and everything. It's a really, really good model. If you can figure out where your niche is in the leisure sector, maybe it's fishing, maybe it's environmental, maybe it's golfing, maybe those sorts of things, you can actually benefit from those options as well. But I would personally recommend you really, really look now at your own infrastructure and architecture and get some business intelligence on it and work your way through it.
Thank you. And for property managers who do want to take more ownership of their visibility and of their demand, what does a healthy strategic channel mix look like in practice? And I know you mentioned a few, but what mistakes should they avoid when trying to diversify as well?
Well, two questions there. One is, what does a really good mix look like? Okay. And we have a lot of these conversations around this, but you have to separate between urban and leisure. And it's in urban areas, 1, 2, 3 night stays, you invariably end up on an OTA. You're not there often there for your family, you're there for business, you're there for conferences, things like that. It's very hard for them to actually reduce the OTA mix unless you can develop a good brand or some form of niche within that urban area. In the leisure sector, personally, I think you should be looking at you don't want to go above 50% OTA bookings if you're doing well. And then you're going below that, you're going to start looking at direct bookings. If you can get over 35% direct bookings, you're beginning to get a decent level of direct bookings. And the rest you can split between, niche marketplaces delivering bookings to you, which aren't the major OTAs. And then, other private demand channels, which could be social, they could be influencers, they could be something else. It's this OTA level you really need to decrease by using them as the referral system. A lot of people are seeing a huge amount of referral bookings because guests are becoming smarter and now they've got the tools to actually do it as well. So that answers your first question. I think the second question was, how do you do it? That's probably a 6-hour conversation. But it actually starts with completely revisiting everything you're doing. You have to start looking at your data. You have to start, Nia was great. He's actually taking all his data. He's using AI to reposition all his messaging to previous guests, to new opportunities, which is something everybody should start doing because personalization makes better bookings. Everybody needs to start looking at their websites. There is a whole new raft of websites coming online. They are AI websites. They are websites with brains. Companies like Flataway and companies like that are doing an incredible job of bringing a whole new element of intelligence to the web. And that this AI is going to change the very fabric. And you only have, I'm going to say this because I'm very old and I've been through the previous incarnation of internet change. You only have a limited amount of time to actually do this. I think you've got about 3 years in which to put together a really good architecture for your company to actually accelerate your business. If you ignore it, you'll be left behind. It's very simple. You need to do it now. Think now.
Yeah, an interesting time as we're seeing AI accelerate, and definitely something to jump on now. And thank you, Richard, for those insights. That does bring us to a wrap on your segment. But thank you.
You're welcome.
And again, all of Richard's details are in the chat box below, so please do connect and reach out. So for trend number 4, we are looking at how AI is transforming the guest experience. And I'm joined by Visar from Guesty. So hi, Visar, how are you? And please introduce yourself.
Hi, Priya. Thank you so much for having me and welcoming me to the webinar. Really appreciate it. I'm the market manager team lead for Guesty, the world's #1 PMS. I know there's some people laughing here, but we know it's true. My job role here at Guesty is essentially just to speak to a lot of property management companies and find out what's really happening on the ground across Europe and try and take that knowledge back to Guesty's software and the product to develop something that's going to be more suitable for them, and also scale Guesty across Europe. So yeah, lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
And I suppose you're at a really interesting position at Guesty where you can kind of see what's working for property managers and what's not. So as we've kind of discussed, AI is a very loud topic at the moment, and but not all tools will make a real impact. So where are you actually seeing AI kind of really help move the needle on guest experiences today? And maybe the areas that we're not really seeing that as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, to be honest with you, like this year has been incredible. I think across the board, the shift between where we were at the beginning of the year with where AI is now has made a huge detrimental like impact in all workflows. And when I'm speaking to operators who have 10 listings all the way up to the ones that have 10,000 plus listings, right? They're looking to really strip back, as Richard mentioned there, and go down to the basics because they have to. I think Richard, he mentioned something there. Operators do have about 3 years, I'd say, at the top end, if I'm being completely transparent, to get their workflows in order. And one of the main places that a lot of the conversations that I have with operators is just guest experience. Aside from the websites, like you'll see a lot more guest experience nowadays. Guests want faster, they want clearer replies, they want AI to be cutting the response times from minutes to seconds as soon as possible, a lot of the time, and more accurate information needs to be delivered to these guests quickly. That's what they're looking for. And I think consistency across all their channels, so guests get the same quality of answer, whether it be for their direct booking websites, whether it's OTAs, whether it's messaging, it has to be all set up specifically. So the foundations need to be set from the get-go, whether it is their website, whether it's guest communication, whether it's operations, like even things like resolutions, right? If there's an issue within a property, for example, some incredible operators who I've spoken to have had AI bots integrated into their software and their system that flags problems before they even occur. And it routes them directly to the operations team so they can turn up and make sure that it's completed within a time frame that's slightly a little bit more beneficial. And they're getting replies and reviews from guests saying, look, they were there before it even happened, which is incredible. So I think it starts with the foundations and then you build from there. But everyone's a kind of like with AI, it's very interesting, right? Because it's kind of just hit us very quickly, all at once. And every single conversation I have with operators across Europe is how are you handling AI? What are you doing with AI? Where's the next step with AI? And 2026 is going to be a huge, huge change.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned there about kind of building the foundations and getting it in early, and then also how that then pans into the in-stay and guest experience as well. So if we zoom out and we look at the full guest journey, so before a stay, during it, and after checkout, how can AI kind of have the biggest impact in 2026? And what does that look like in practice?
Yeah, great question. I think Jaime touched up on it a little bit earlier, but pre-stay is definitely the most important in 2026. Even just based on the conversations I've had, I think, companies like Google, like Anthropic, Gemini, ChatGPT, the guest's journey is shifting from a tab selection. This is kind of how many guests I have. This is how many adults there are, all the way to a conversational search. They want to have conversations, right? And your listing and your properties will only be shown on these OTAs and on these different websites if your data is set up properly, your listings are set up properly, just to grab that. And I mean, listen, I do it myself nowadays. When I book a trip, I just put it into ChatGPT. Me, my wife, and my kids are looking to go away between these dates. Find me a couple of options. And, some of the ones that pop up on there, as Jaime rightly said, the reviews are generally a lot higher. The description highlights a lot of my data. So a lot of the things that my cookies have taken into account and searched and put that in there. And it kind of churns out a lot of what users are actually looking for. So by far pre-stay, I'd say operators with structured content will surface a lot more.
Yeah, definitely. It's all about that, using that data, like you said, to kind of increase that visibility pre-stay. So that's interesting. And I know when we think about AI now, people can kind of jump to, robots in rooms and things like that. So what does meaningful guest-facing AI actually look like for a typical operator?
I mean, not robots at doorstops letting you in, I'd say that much. I think it looks invisible, if I'm being honest with you. Invisible is like the way when you're speaking to operators, they don't want it to seem like it's AI. They still want to have that human aspect to it, which is understandable, right? We're in the industry of hospitality. We've got to be hospitable. I think there's a certain element where AI can do automations and it can do the job to a certain extent, but having that emotional intelligence, we're still not there yet. So yeah, it just needs to be a little bit more clearer. It needs to understand the context, the booking details, the stay length, and yeah, all the quirks of the property, but deliver it as human as possible. But yeah, it's interesting, but I don't think it's robots right now. But maybe in the future, who knows?
And for those that might not have really embraced AI yet, what would you say are the first one or two use cases that you would recommend if the goal is to ultimately elevate that guest experience without almost adding an extra layer of complexity as well for the operator?
Yeah, foundations. Definitely get the foundations up. I think where we're at with AI is probably only 2 to 3% of where we're going to be in the next 2 to 3 years. So get your foundations in order and build on that. So things like guest communication, automate your frequently asked questions, automate the check-in process, automate the issues that might arise a lot of the time. Is always a good start for anyone who's looking to jump into it now. Smart pricing is the next thing. You've got, again, leaning on data, and Jaime can definitely touch up on this, but I've spoken to many of our marketplace partners who are dynamic pricing operators, and I've also worked internally with our own pricing optimizing team who are using AI to leverage that a lot of the way, if I'm being completely honest with you. So smart pricing is going to be assisted a lot by AI-driven insights and data. So yeah, that's the next thing. And I think last one would probably be operations if you're just starting off. So, failed cleanings, access issues, overdue tasks, they get flagged quickly and early. So yeah, I'd say those are probably the top three off the top of my head.
But we're definitely seeing a lot of ways that we can implement AI to kind of build those areas. And like you said, guest experience is one of the key ways that it can just simplify so much for operators. And yeah, I definitely think we can expect to see that more moving into next year. So thank you. And again, all of Visar's details are available in the chat box below. But thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, up next, we have our final trend, which is multi-accommodation bookings. And I am met with Ritesh Raj from CuddlyNest. So welcome, Ritesh. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Priya. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time. Thank you for having me. My name is Ritesh. I'm the co-founder and the CEO of CuddlyNest. We are quite a new company that most of you may not know about, except some. We are an OTA focused primarily on accommodation offering, all sorts of accommodation. We support around 30 types of accommodation right now, but very soon, in the next few weeks, we are going to be publicly launching flights as well as attraction tickets.
Perfect, thank you. So a key thing that we've kind of seen over the past year is a rise of travellers kind of booking multiple accommodation types within a single trip. So whether that be hotels, rentals, resorts, hostels, everything together. So from your perspective, what do you think is driving this behaviour shift?
Well, I mean, I have traveled myself for a very extended period of time, and I have kind of like experienced that part of the question that you're asking. I feel that it is mostly led by millennials and Gen Zs, I would say, this kind of trend. Of course, Jaime has a whole list of it, I guess, all data. But to what we know is this what it is. It's mostly depending on the purpose of travel. That's why we try to offer different travelers, different sort of like itineraries together that we have done on our platform, as you can see on our homepage option. I think extended stays. So when you are going for, let's say, your work trip and you want to extend that, so you mix your personal trip with the business trip and you extend that, that really helps a lot in terms of planning better and choosing different unit types. So we have seen people settling into a hotel first. They want to relax for the first couple of days. Then if there is a family, they prefer a bigger apartment or connected sort of rooms in a hotel. It really depends also on the area. If it's more urban or more remote, it changes. So it really depends, I think, on the individual or the group who is traveling. But yeah, Gen Zs I have seen, and millennials in the trend that they are quite okay for being a hopper, if I say, not the company, but just hopping around accommodation. I personally don't like it. So if I have a trip planned for myself, I would like to stay in one place and not hop around and wrap the trip up. But then everybody's different. So yeah, I would say it's mostly preference based, and extended stays after your business trip or before your business trip starts, because you may going individually to a place and then your family joins in later, and then you don't want to stay in a hotel with your family with 2 kids and a dog and so on. So you want to have a different kind of accommodation. So that's where, and people have choices now. They can as Visar also mentioned a bit about the AI and how he can make trips, how he made trips with his family, GPT and all that. So many people have now awareness, I would say, that they did not have necessarily before, and the options to choose different options. Price point is also something to look at. So there are a lot of factors. It's really hard to summarize all of them together.
Thank you. And I suppose the shift kind of creates opportunity in a sense for booking platforms, but also how could property managers expect their listings to change in the way that they are presented or compared into 2026 with this kind of rise in other accommodation types being listed as well?
So you mean, just to understand the question, so you mean the property managers, how they can leverage?
Yeah, so how could this kind of increase of multi-accommodation bookings perhaps impact property managers and how their listings are presented or compared as well?
I mean, they definitely have to take all possible routes for advertisement, of course. So they need to be on possibly every OTAs that can support to give them more bookings and fill their calendar. They have to definitely work on uniqueness. I mean, the point that was touched by Richard and also by Jaime was on how to make your property more discoverable. And it's not entirely related, but then the more you describe your property better, that's better the SEO picks up. So that's definitely more on the organic side that you mix with inorganic. That is also through channels with the OTAs, like what we do, for example. We don't necessarily only focus on vacation homes. It's a vertical that we have. We have over 30 types of accommodation, including hotels and vacation homes and hostels and so on. So to this vertical, we recommend definitely to focus a lot on pricing. I would say is also quite relevant here, possibly that they can look at just to be comparing. I mean, maybe use Guesty. Sorry, not Guesty. My bad. AirDNA. My bad. Sorry.
No, you can use Guesty.
You can use this too? Okay, I didn't know that. I think AirDNA does it really well, I guess, right, Jaime? You can offer that internal data about what's the market doing and all that. So that really helps you to be above the pack, I would say.
Yeah, I think visibility is definitely a key consideration, and when we think about this emerging trend. So I know you touched on the importance of visibility and how that might be evolving for property managers in these multi-accommodation journeys. So what else could property managers kind of do now, whether that is pricing strategies like you mentioned, but also distribution, content or positioning too?
Yeah, sure. So distribution, of course. I mean, you have to distribute as many ways as you can. I mean, OTA is just one route. Organic is another route, as we discussed earlier. It definitely helps for sure. In terms of, let's say, the positioning, I mean, you have to choose your specific route or your niche that you want to focus on, and have yourself sort of like cornered as a sort of unique way offering. I think Neer touched on it really well on his company, where they focus on very luxury expertise. So if I am looking for very, very, very luxury sort of thing or a setup, I definitely would like to go to Neer as compared to just any OTA trying to find some luxury escape. So I think it's really important to sort of look at those cohorts you can focus on. You can also focus on retreats, yoga retreats, or wellness retreat. You can focus on maybe corporate retreats. So you just have to choose your uniqueness and then kind of like really work hard towards doing really well. And it just reminds me again of Neer conversation on how he has 5 different baskets for arrival, depending on different kind of group who is coming to stay. So these small things really matter. And then, people know you, they come to you, and then they most likely will be a direct customer.
Interesting, thank you. And I suppose, I know you mentioned branching out into rentals and everything a lot more. As travelers are mixing these accommodation types within the same trip, where do you think that short-term rentals kind of fit into those blended itineraries as well? So I know Richard mentioned earlier about having those unique kind of propositions. So are there certain moments or travel needs where rentals are becoming the preferred choice and they can kind of stand out in that sense too?
Yeah, it really, it's quite connected to the first question. So it really depends on the purpose of travel. It all comes down to that.
Yeah.
So it's really the purpose. So, if your purpose is a group of friends going together for a 10 days trip, it all depends on duration. If you have only 2 days or 3 days or 5 days, are you going to stay in like a city, or are you going to stay in somewhere really far away from the city? It really depends on that. So an extended work trip is also a part of it. A group of friends going together is part of it. And it's all the same thing. As I personally have felt, when I go somewhere, if it's a 2 weeks trip, I definitely don't want to have the hassle of going to a STR, for example. It's just the check-in time, meeting. I just want to be like on a 10 hours flight. I want to get in somewhere. I just want to check in a nice hotel or a hotel and kind of like go through less conversation and get settled in. So the settle in phase kind of like sort of really important to me. So for an individual, it could be different. Maybe they would like to wait up in a coffee place for the first, 4 hours while check-in time arrives, and then they go and check in. So it really depends on individual. But when you have trips that are mixed with work, then of course we also choose that. If you have a family gathering or some special event to celebrate, in that case also you choose a bigger reunion space, like a big villa or a ranch or something where you can all be together. So it really depends on the purpose of travel, duration of the travel, and the kind of group it is, basically.
So perhaps maybe property managers should make it a priority to review those bookings in advance, kind of evaluating what it is they're booking their guests might want, and kind of preparing that in advance for how you can kind of cater to those specific guests, maybe.
Yeah, true. Absolutely. Yeah, you definitely do that. I'm pretty sure people I'm not in the business of property management per se, but I'm sure others on this panel are. Some of them are or have been. You definitely see your guests coming in and what kind of guests coming in, what their requirements are. You have a pre-check-in requirement. You send them emails, the communication that goes on. You connect with them. There are greet services. They wait for you. So they really prepare if they want to be scaling and be getting direct bookings and all that. They definitely have to prepare themselves.
Perfect. Thank you, Ritesh. And that actually brings us to a close on your section. But thank you. And again, all contact information details are in the chat box if you would like to connect with Ritesh after the webinar.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. So that brings us to a close on our trends webinar. I just want to say thank you to all of our experts that joined me today for all of your insights. This is actually our final webinar up until after Christmas. So hopefully I will see all of you again in January for our next webinar, where we will be discussing what do travelers really think. And we will be joined by some consumers live on air to discuss booking behavior and travel behavior. And it will be a really exciting one, a bit different. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Thank you, Priya. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Amazing.
you.
Thank you, Priya. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks all. So just a
Best.
few closing comments from me. So we are live for the shorties in April. So you can go ahead now and gather your tickets and also submit your entry. So do check out the Shorties 2026 website with all information on categories and entry info if you would like to submit an entry. Entries are completely free of charge, so please do take a look. And here is a quick video on the shorties, just explaining what it's all about. Perfect, just a quick one there. And again, if you are interested in working with us, then please reach out to our head of growth, whose contact details are on screen now. And just a final thank you from me and to all of those listening and to all of our speakers again. Thank you. And please enjoy this short video from the IHM team.
Thank you, Priya.
Thanks, Priya.
At IHM, we believe in the power of connection. We exist to inspire, to inform, and to unite decision makers who are shaping the future of hospitality and real estate. Our why is simple. We believe this industry thrives when people and ideas come together. And we're here to make that happen. So how do we do it? We publish 4 leading multimedia brands, each a trusted voice in its sector. We blend intelligent content, curated events, and a strong community into everything we do, making it easy, accessible, and genuinely useful. From online engagement to face-to-face connection, we are known for being insightful, collaborative, and refreshingly human. We host world-class events, panel discussions, podcasts, award ceremonies, and webinars designed to spark ideas, drive conversation, and create impact. With over 62,000 monthly web visitors, 55,000 email subscribers, and 69,000 social media connections. Our reach is deep and our community is active. We're partnered with the biggest names in hospitality, and we'd love to connect with you. So whether you're looking to grow your visibility, meet the right people, or understand where the market's heading, read, watch, listen, and me. Do it all with IHM.